Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the town board meeting on May 8th, 2024, roughly 6:30 p.m. As always, we are hybrid and remote, so we are live streaming to Facebook, YouTube, and to our own website. We're here in person, and we also have a Zoom running for anybody that wants to attend remotely. Instructions to get into the Zoom are at the top of each of our agendas. There's a PDF there that you can click in and get all the information you need. With that, I would ask Councilor Creasel to lead the charge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So first up, we have open podium. First up, I have Matthew Denton, topic town board.
Good evening, councilors. There are several incidents during recent board meetings I find unacceptable and feel the need to address. First, I want to thank Councilor Nesson for repeatedly stating residents should not be silenced in an open podium. The supervisor not wanting to hear the community's concerns is not a valid excuse to deny speaking at an open podium, and I urge all town councilors to hold supervisor accountable in the future when residents take the time out of their day to speak. They deserve to be heard. Second, I found councilors' behavior at the April 24th town board meeting unacceptable. Denying a peer's request for additional time to review a legal document that they only just received is wrong and frankly insulting. All of you need to apologize to Councilor Creasel and Councilor Nesson for your behavior. If councilors have not been given time to review an agenda item that is before the board, you can be assured that residents have not reviewed it either. Third, the resolution creating a quarry committee needs to be revoked. A commission consisting of the quarry owner, a pro-quarry supervisor, an immediate neighborhood with a private agreement with the quarry owner is not an unbiased board that can represent the interests of the town residents. The quarry has an impact beyond its physical boundary and it needs to have representation from town residents. We, the residents of Manlius, need a voice. If the town board had granted Councilor Creasel's request for due diligence, she could have received this feedback before rushing ahead with a vote on a biased commission. I ask that in today's meeting you make a motion and vote to repeal creating the quarry commission so that councilors and residents can provide feedback and create a commission that has the well-being of the town and not a private corporation as its guiding principle. Fourth, in the last 2 years, residents have seen a 13% increase in property taxes, a $2.2 million increase with no additional services or infrastructure made available to residents. Now this board wants to spend another $20+ million for a new building that will not add any additional services or improve our quality of life. A 25-year-old building study and a can we do this feasibility study is not a reason to empty taxpayer pockets. Fifth, it is clear from the last board meeting that you foresee continued expansion of police services in the years to come. It should not be on the town to pay for the bill for services used throughout the county. This board needs to look into consolidating the town police with the county, as has been done with other municipalities in Onondaga County, before shackling residents with additional debt and liability. Six, the town of Manlius needs an ethics committee. I would go so far as to say that all town business beyond keeping the lights on should stop until it is created. And last, the town board's actions these last couple of months has made it clear to me that the well-being of our town, residents, and environment is secondary to your own interests. As such, I want to be clear that you have lost my support and my vote. Do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Maureen Aliani for the off-putting smell.
Hopefully I didn't say it. Hi, my name is Maureen Aliani. I currently live at 7373 Spring Mountain Drive in Fremont Meadows, East Syracuse. We just purchased our house in late November and moved in December 1st. I'm extremely upset and disturbed by the unpleasant or poop smell in my neighborhood. I was extremely shocked when neighbors started telling me that they need to close their windows because the smell gets so bad, and that I was provided, the first number I got from neighbors was the poop smell line. Like everybody passes it around, that's who you call when you smell it. It's horrible. Anyway, I am also greatly concerned and confused by the increase in home assessments in our neighborhood. I believe home assessments, and correct me if I'm wrong, are based on market value and what homes are selling for. I would not have purchased my house if I knew my neighborhood smelled like poop. I would not have purchased it at the price I bought it at, or at all, probably. So with all that being said, here's my questions. Where can I get official information about what the town of Manlius has done to address this issue? What has the county done to address this issue? Because I'm getting lots of like information and Facebook posts and things like that. Like, I want the real deal information, please. So what has the county done? Who owns the water treatment plant that is producing the smell? And what are the chemicals in the air causing the smell? From informal conversations with my neighbors, I feel they are very interested in this information too. Thank you.
So I'm gonna address you.
Sure.
So hi,
Hi.
welcome to the neighborhood. I'm your neighbor.
Oh,
Ingrid is also your
Oh,
neighbor.
yes, yes.
Are you in the closed Facebook group for the neighborhood?
Yes.
I've been posting and Ingrid's been posting updates there. I started organizing our neighborhood a couple of years ago, got involved with town board members and then came to the board. And just want to let you know, in there's a lot of information that the town can't do much about it, if anything, other than to pressure the county. And a letter is ready to go out tomorrow morning from the supervisor to the county to ask the WEP commissioner to come here and present and meet in a work session like we had earlier today, and for our neighborhood to come and have that open conversation with her, get an update, and find out if she can expedite the process, if at all, so that we could have a little relief. I was walking at 6:15 yesterday morning, and as Spring Mountain turned into Snowball Run, it just overwhelmed me, and I had to breathe through my sleeve until I got back to the house.
Yeah.
And it was the end of my walk, one lap.
That's where my kid's bus stop is. And she texted me, she said, it smells like poop. And I was like,
Yeah, well, thank you for coming and speaking. I appreciate it.
so, but I mean, also there's still the issue of the tax assessment with this. And also, like, so I came to you and I got this much information, but it's not really a town issue. Who do I go to is my next question too.
Well, we're gonna have that meeting, there should be a meeting resulting from the letter.
Uh-huh.
And that's where our neighborhood, we want to come in, any other neighborhood in that area, Erie Village, and then the other parts of Fremont there. And any businesses like the golf course that are affected by it to come and attend that meeting and also ask questions of the county. The assessment is a question of the assessor.
Uh-huh.
But I can
Yeah.
just say, so the county owns the plant. The county is responsible for managing the plant. So it is a county issue, so you could speak to your county legislator,
Okay,
who's Mark Olson,
Mark Olson.
in terms of just directing, we are advocating on your behalf. but
Okay, thank you.
We can't fix it. The second piece is about assessment. Assessment is a town thing.
Uh-huh.
There is a process to individually, fight your assessment, but I think you're asking greater, these housing values can't be what they are with the poop smell.
Yes,
So
exactly.
that's a separate issue, and I have not asked him that question, but we can.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
So we do have one more person signed up. It looks here that the topic is the development corp, so we've got a public hearing coming up for that. I think it's,
That's
me.
oh, okay. So then,
I can't. Oh,
Yeah.
Chris?
I would just ask anybody who's here remotely who wants to take part in open podium, please use the raise hand function. And we will get you promoted so you can ask your question. And then I would just look for a show of hands. Anybody else here for open podium? Specifically the local development corp, we have a public hearing on the schedule for that. Anyone else? Anyone on Zoom? Okay. So,
John just
I don't remember. Oh, yes, we do have a letter.
Dear Town Board, as I cannot be present or online for the Manlius Town Board meeting this evening, I am sending the following message that I would like to be read and entered into the minutes during the open forum. On November 15th, 2023 and January 24th, 2024, I addressed the Town Board and the Town Assessor during the open forum with several questions regarding the assessment process. I purposely chose to ask the questions at those times because the Town Assessor was present. And because the questions would be separated from any personal issues, I might later have with a grievance. After the January meeting, Mr. Duffy handed me his business card and asked me to call him. I did, left a voicemail, and never heard back from him. So why am I writing now to bring this to your attention? I'm writing because I believe that Mr. Duffy, as an agent of the town, has a responsibility to be responsive to the citizens of the town, to educate us about the processes he uses in his professional capacity as town assessor, and to answer questions when addressed. It ought not be that the only time a person interacts with the assessor's office is in the context of grieving an assessment, which is ordinarily an adversarial encounter. I would ask the town supervisor to communicate my displeasure with the assessor for his non-responsiveness, I further request that the town board schedule a future meeting with the assessor where the assessor would be present to explain his processes and respond to the questions. Thank you for your attention to my concern, Craig Duzak.
So next up, Earth Fest sponsors.
So we had our 4th annual Earth Fest event on Saturday. It went extremely well. We don't have the count of people that I think it was around 2,000 people that came. We had over 50 booths represented from companies and organizations from around the state, actually, which was great. We had like the New York Canal Corp there. We actually had some vendors from Chicago come to our event. So that was awesome. We could not have put the event on without the support of several members of the community, and that includes Craig Polhemus, Alice Massa, Brad Save. They really constituted, along with myself, Councilor Neshi, and Councilor Curdy, that we really got things done, and it was extremely successful. And we also have our intern here, Lily Palmer, who is also very much an asset to our team. And we had Renewable Fable was a great partner. And so we were thrilled to have that and thrilled to be hosted by the Village of Fayetteville again. And I cannot thank the DPW enough. They did such a tremendous job and were so helpful. They were there all day. It was great to have the police department there with the electric vehicle that they've got. That was really fun for everyone, and all the electric vehicles, all the people who brought their EVs. And then we had a couple dozen volunteers who showed up on the day up to really see the event through. So I was exhausted after the event, as was I think a lot of people, but it was tremendously successful. So thank you everyone who helped put that event on. Am I missing anything?
I think you have it covered.
No, thank you, and thank you for all of those who attended the event, because otherwise it would just be a bunch of people standing around without attendance. So thank you if you came, it was great.
So next up, we have a presentation from the Town of Manlius Police Department, talking about the cadet post. So I've got your slides here. Just take a look.
Sounds good. Move this a little bit because I tend to move around when I talk. All right. For those who don't know me, my name is Nate Spinelli. I've been a police officer here in Manlius for a little over 5 years now. This is the third chance I've had to come in front of you on this podium pretty much and talk about something that we do as a police department that I find extremely important. That's how I've started every presentation so far. And at the risk of sounding repetitive, I'm going to start this with the same statement that the Manlius Police Department Cadet Program is something that's extremely important that we do as an agency that not a lot of other agencies do. This one, however, is very close to my heart because from 2010 to 2016, I was actually a cadet here in Manlius. The program's ultimately what made me decide that not only did I want to be a police officer, but I want to be an officer here in our town. So today we're going to go through a little bit of that. I want to introduce these guys and have them stand up and introduce themselves for you.
Yeah, I'm Captain Fellow of Town of Manlius Police Cadet Post. So I'm a junior up at the FM High School. It's also very important to me as a post. So
I'm Sergeant Rose with the Manlius Cadet Post. I'm a senior at FM High School.
I'm Sergeant Mack, and I'm also a senior at FM High School, or a junior at FM High School.
So these guys here are super important to our unit in the first place. They're the leaders of the program. We'll get into a little bit about what their roles are within the program. If you want to flip to the next slide. Just real quick, this is breeze through my resume. Like I said, 2010 to 2016, I was in the Explorer program. I was hired by Manlius in 2019, and I've been the lead cadet post advisor since 2021. I got a chance to take that program from what was originally run by the Boy Scouts of America, change it over to NERLIA, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, and get to expand from there. Outside of that, I'm part of our crisis intervention team. I'm part of our traffic unit here. I'm advanced roadside and impaired driving enforcement certified. It's called ARIDE because the name is way too long. I'm IDC, which is instructor development course. I'm a police general topics instructor, so I can teach our department as well as academies and so on. I've received the certification for initial response to active shooter. And then most recently, I've become an ICAT instructor, which is integrating communications, assessments, and tactics. In other words, it's de-escalation tactics more than anything else. What?
Could you put full screen on there, so, because I'm
Could you hide the participants on the Zoom call?
thinking of.
Yeah, there you go. We'll leave.
That worked. So just a brief history real quick. The Explorer program started long before even the inception of the Manlius Police Department as we know it today. The Village of Minoa Police Department ran the Explorer post before 1985. In 1985, when Manlius, Fayetteville, Minoa, and the town of Manlius all consolidated into our agency today, we took it over and we ran it. The program has served as a bridge between the community and their police department, allowing students hands-on opportunities to participate in events and trainings. And like I mentioned earlier, in 2020, we had the opportunity to rebuild and recreate the Explorer program under a new group, a new title, the Northeast Regional Law Enforcement Educational Association, or better known as NERLIA. If you look at their patch on the top left there, you're gonna see specifically the Northeast portion of the US is what they cover. Benefit to us there is all the events are localized, they're here, within a couple-hour drive rather than some of these bigger events being in Los Angeles and so on and so on. This is directly from NERLIA. The NERLIA shall function as a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing young adults who have an interest in law enforcement with the opportunities for hands-on experiences, training, leadership opportunities, community service, social interaction, and skills for a possible future law enforcement career. NERLIA currently consists of 63 cadet posts in New York and surrounding states, including Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Vermont. So that's 63 separate police departments who all have a cadet program that we compete against in some of these events and a lot of other things we get to do alongside of them. So to bring it to us in particular, Manlius here, the objective of our program is to expose students to a career in law enforcement through lectures, tours, community events, hands-on scenario-based training, and a ride-along program. So that's the majority of what we do in this program fits one of these categories. Specifically, ride-along program allows them to see what we do every day. They get to ride along with one of our officers and observe from a safe distance in terms of what we do every day. This last blurb here, it allows students to ultimately determine if law enforcement is the right career path for them. This, to me, is one of my biggest goals with this program. When I started in 2019, I went to Broome County's Academy. We started with either 53 or 54 new recruits. 2 weeks into the program, we were down to 34 to 36. Question is, where did those almost 20 recruits go? Why did they leave? Because they were not kicked out because there was a PT exam prior to that you had to pass in order to get into the academy. They resigned. And the more you talk to people that have chosen a different path, they ultimately did not know first of all, what this job consists of, what the day-to-day is, what the physical and mental requirement of this job is every day. So they had to determine way further in life that, if they chased after law enforcement for a significant amount of time, they realized later that this is not meant for me. That is a very difficult decision to make once you've gone through high school, you've completed college, you've gone this direction thinking law enforcement is for you, and then you get your first few weeks on and you realize that it's not right. So this program, ultimately, my goal in it is to allow these kids the chance to understand what we do every day, see what it looks like, and to even participate in a lot of it. So they can determine if it's for them long before they start a police academy. I don't see, when we lose kids that decide to do other things, I don't see that as a loss. I see that as a win as well, because ultimately I've given them a chance and have guided them to understand that this is not for them. And then they can start college or wherever they go on the right career path and make the right decisions based on where they're actually meant to be. You can hit it a couple times here. Good. So just real quick, applicants and responsibilities. Cadets are between the age of 14 and 20. They must attend training days. We host 2 two-hour-long training days every month. Members in good standing must attend 80% of them. And cadets must maintain a GPA of 70% or higher in high school. So big idea here is if this program becomes too much of a draw, too much of a distraction from school, that needs to be their priority. I ask them to step down for a little bit, and then once their grades are back up and they can manage it, then they're welcome to come back. So that is a huge piece of what we do. I'm gonna have Captain Felton talk about this slide real quick, since he is our ranking structure here.
Yeah, so basically, as opposed to, we split it up into two sections. We have an administration section, and then more of kind of an operations section. So we have myself as captain. I also have a lieutenant who works with me, and we kind of work with our advisor here to plan and schedule events and make sure we're working towards goals as opposed. And then we also have our sergeants here. They're part of our operations group. They kind of make sure we have the people and the numbers to get events that we need to get done. And we really try to replicate what we've seen in the police department in ourselves, and that goes to help us prepare for the career as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Very well said. So the, as you see on that chart there, that's pretty much very similar to what our police department set up. Like, whole idea means, gives these kids an opportunity to practice leadership roles that they may not have elsewhere. We say we have to, doing this job, we have to be comfortable in the uncomfortable every day. That's kind of what we do. So to get them started in that area and understand what being uncomfortable looks like and learning how to work through that, work with people, work through like de-escalation stuff, learning who people are and how to work through their issues is something we try to start at a young age. Taking it twice here. So just to give you a rough idea of some of the topics that we train on, the major ones being traffic stops, DWI stops, de-escalation tactics, and crisis intervention. That's one we hit home pretty hard due to just the amount of mental health related calls we get here in the town. DeBoer procedural law, so they understand what we do every day and how we have to go about doing it. Domestic disputes, investigations like crime scenes, different types of disputes. Building searches, room clearing, and then some of the skills that we teach them include first aid and CPR, stop the bleed. These categories in particular, I'm a huge proponent that everybody well outside of this field should learn a lot of this stuff. There's been many stories of cadets that have gone through our program where they've used this well outside of being an explorer, being a cadet. So to be able to take that and they'll be certified for a few years and they're able to use that elsewhere as well. Drilling formations, traffic directing, and uniform pressing as well. So some of the more redundant things as well, but we still teach it. And you can hit this a couple times too. So training days. What we do is we focus on one training topic at a time. Usually if we are transitioning from one topic to another, we'll spend 10-15 minutes reviewing the last topic so we don't lose it. And then we do about a half hour, 45 minutes of classroom training, then participate in scenario-based training. In this job in particular, I'm a big proponent that everything we learn by doing it ourselves. So what we try to do is in a controlled environment, we create a scenario similar to calls that we'll go on. If I have something in the week that was kind of puzzling, I'll bring it to them in the form of a scenario, have either one of them or our officers role play as the people involved in that call, and then they'll get dispatched like we do. So they'll be sent to a call, I'll give them the notes on the call similar to what we'll be given, and then they have to use problem-solving skills, work through it, and determine what the end result is and how we can best solve that. So like I said, sitting down in front of a slideshow and talking about stuff, oftentimes this field just doesn't, there is a part of that that needs to exist, but they really learn when they get to do it themselves. On the top right there, you're gonna see Captain Felton conducting a traffic stop with one of our role players here being Sergeant Brodus. On the top right, we got together with North Syracuse's cadet program, and we put together basically a DWI simulation course. So you'll see it's a little pedal bike with 2 seats. They put on the DWI goggles and you can see the actual effects of impairment on their driving ability. So that's a big educational piece we'll use to show what that looks like. On the bottom left and bottom right there, that's paramedic Jake Seeger with Manlius Fire Department. He trained them last year in first aid and stop the bleed, or CPR and stop the bleed training. So you can see that our goal is to try to make them as educated in different areas as possible too. So it's not just me talking to them all the time. So these are just some of the yearly events that our cadets will assist with and participate in. A lot of you guys should recognize these because they're not our events, they're yours. We just assist with traffic directing and all sorts of other things as an agency. So on most recently, the Lake Effect Run, on the bottom there, that was in the middle of February. These guys were out there with me with reflective vests, and we were directing traffic for that as well. So they get to do the day-to-day stuff that we do as well, as long as they're in a, like I said, safe environment, being with another officer. So Stations Day is one of the other categories I want to discuss as well. Stations Day is pretty much when it's a culmination of all their training. They get a chance to participate in a competition, essentially, against other cadet programs. So in 2022 and 23, we hosted it here within the town of Manlius. And before that, we did years past, but that was before my time. So ultimately, it's a competition between cadet programs where they're given scenarios where they showcase their skills and training and work to outperform other cadets. So a lot of the topics that I showed you in our training bulletin earlier, they'll go into a traffic stop, for example, and they'll get graded on it, how well they interact, if they come to the right conclusion in some scenarios, ultimately the problem-solving skills, and then they're able to take that home and say, all right, what do I need to work on for next year? So not only is it a competition, but it lets them kind of gauge where they're at. When I was in the program years ago, I got the chance to do a lot of that stuff, and that's ultimately, I remember those days more than anything else, because they induce having other people watching you adds a layer of stress to it too, so you're like, oh man, I gotta do this right. And then it simulates more of a real life thing. When you get out on the road for the first time, it's uncomfortable, so you have to work through that. Attending agencies over the last couple of years included North Syracuse, Vernon, Oriskany, Troy Police Department, Colony Police Departments. So some of those are from a couple hours away. They still participated in our program last October and the year before. On the top left, if you see the guy in the black hoodie, that's Officer Reynolds with us. He was actually an explorer in, I believe, 2016 or 17. He was our role player for suspicious person call, and the cadets on the left of him had to work through that. On the top right, in the distance there, that's Officer Golden. He's instructing a traffic stop and grading them on that. Bottom left and bottom right goes to the cadets that attended. And on the bottom left photo, on the right-hand side, that's Officer Rowe. She, a year before this photo was taken, she was in the same photo wearing a gray shirt. She was an explorer as well. So we have a good handful of our department now consists of people that grew up in this program and knew what we did every day. Yeah. So, yeah, you can do the third one too. So Nerlia hosts a handful of events themselves as well. Nerlia's headquarters is in Connecticut, so we have the ability to go down and participate in some of these bigger, like the large-scale Stations Day. They have an Nerlia Academy, which is a 7-day academy, including squad drill, ceremonial training, and a bunch of other stuff. Their SWAT challenge is a tactical team environment focusing on skills and sharpening abilities. So they get a chance to do all these variety of different things if we choose to. And then what we end up doing is we do a series of fundraisers to try to prepare them and get them the funds they need to go down and participate in. So just to kind of recap benefits, cadets get the chance to determine if law enforcement is a career meant for them. Many others who enter this field don't get to see what day-to-day police work is like. That's the big thing that I said earlier, not being able to really understand. If you see on TV, you see clips of things, it's not always reality. So we need to make sure that the people coming on get to see what we do every day, at least in our department. They get a chance to increase personal skills by working with the public and being put in uncomfortable situations. And volunteer community public service time by assisting with other events as well. And lastly, it's fun, or at least we try to make it fun. So that's about it there. Go to the next one. So just recap. The Manlius Police Department provides students with the opportunity to train in the law enforcement field and participate in police events. TMPD works to provide cadets with a safe and controlled environment to gain a better understanding of police work and help students determine if a career in law enforcement is for them. Before I go to the next slide here, this is me proving that I'm not lying to you, so you can go ahead and click it. These two photos here were taken, on the left would have been 2012, I believe. They had blue uniforms before, we got rid of that, it looked not as professional, so we went with the gray ones. I'm in the middle there on the bottom row. Directly to my left, that's Jake Seeger, he's the one that's a paramedic in Manlius Fire Department. He also was in the Explorer program with me. At least 3 of the guys in that photo as well are local fire departments and or military. So just about everybody in the photos have either been to one or the other. On the right-hand side there, that's me and one of my buddies that was in the program as well. We had a Stations Day that we went to, and that's us holding the awards we got at the end of it. So I remember that day very clearly, so it's awesome to be able to take this stuff and be able to bring it back and show it to them and participate, give back to the program. So, any questions, either for me or for them? They're available to answer questions as well.
How long does the program last for? Like, how long are you in it?
So kids between the age of 14 and 20 can be in the program because when they turn 21, they age out and they can actually become a police officer. So there's no like amount of time they have to be in there. I get kids every now and then join at 18, 19, 20, and they're only in there for a few years. And in some cases, like Devin's brother, he joined us at 14 years old, so he started real early.
And then you can continue until 20.
Yes, exactly.
How many hours a week typically do you guys?
So we do two-hour trainings every month. So like usually every other Sunday we do a 2-hour training. And then outside of that, it's really just the events that we host. So we try to, anytime we do an event, usually in the winter, there's kind of a lull where we don't have a whole lot just because everybody's indoors, nobody wants to do anything. And then we go out in the summertime, spring and fall, and there's a lot of events they get to participate with. Memorial Day, 4th of July are the big ones. You'll see them out there directing traffic with us, doing foot patrols for certain things as well. And then some of these other events that happen over the next couple months too.
Does it increase the likelihood that you'll get accepted into the academy if you participate in a program?
Not necessarily. What I do is I give them the knowledge that they need to succeed in the career, but it's not like a foot in the door that lets you get into the job. Ultimately, like understanding not just what we do, but understanding what's required when you go through an academy, whether it be the physical side or like how well you need to learn in certain areas. I know when I went to the academy, my knowledge from here, specifically in the scenario stuff, helped like crazy. The last 2 weeks in the academy are reality-based training. It's basically, they put you through 911 calls that may go well or they may go poorly, and you have to problem solve and work through it and be as prepared as possible beforehand. So I did really well in that area because I spent 6 years doing it with our agency. So not necessarily a foot in the door, but more of like I just give them what they need so they can succeed.
Yeah, that comes to that question. It's like you kind of alluded to it earlier. It's almost like more of an assurance of success in the academy. It's like
pretty much, yes.
Sort of thing. And I wonder if looking back, if there's been any analysis of like what percentage of folks who go through academy who were or were not part of the cadet program ultimately were successful.
Yeah, and even just in the time period that I was in the program, I can say there's at least 6 or 7 of them that are active duty law enforcement right now. Even within our own agency, James Badger is one of the officers that was an explorer for a while. Charlie Reynolds, Ashley Rowe, myself, and the chief was an explorer years ago as well. And
1986.
Yeah, and a few others as well. So
I want to see those pictures.
you won't let me have.
very tall and thin at the time.
So it's more of giving you the idea of knowing what to expect so you can achieve it ultimately. Like even when we go and we hire people into our agency, it's a process. It's extensive. You have to go through panel interviews. You got to go through a good background. If these kids decide to, if you were to decide to make bad decisions in college and stuff like that, then just because you're in the program, it doesn't let you in. Yeah. Now I'm giving you the decision-making kind of chart that they need to follow, but that doesn't mean they actually do it either. So it's ultimately up to them to decide if this is what they want to do and if they want to stay devoted enough to it to chase that career.
Typically, how many cadets are enrolled at the?
So currently we have 15 or so.
Around
15. At our peak, we've had about 22 or so. That was when I was in the program. But ideally, I'd like to have like that 20 to 25 mark is perfect, so we can set up them with the correct amount of sergeants, usually 4 or 5 kids per sergeant as well, and then they can get that role playing as being a leader for everything we do.
We've got a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Where does your funding come from?
So everything we do is based on donations or fundraisers more than anything else.
There was a PBA, can you get money?
Yes, yep, so anytime we've done like big events or we've hosted it, we've gone to the PBA for a donation and requested, they've been very good about that. Outside of that, we have a couple other things we've done. We've done can drives, bottle drives locally. Back when I was in the park program years ago, UNO has allowed us to do one of those nights that you can come in and a portion of your meal would go to the program. And then most recently, I've been using our own guys as funding as well. I set up a vending machine essentially in the police department, and I keep that stocked, and a certain amount of every purchase goes directly to their thing as well. So that way there's a constant supply of something at least. Yes?
Do you seek out the young people or do the young people seek you out?
A little bit of both. We try, last fall during the spring semester of high school, we went to the high school and did what's it called, career fair? The career day. So we set up a booth there where we got a chance to talk to a lot of kids, and we ended up doing some good recruiting from that. Oftentimes, the best resource to get people in the program is our school resource officers, because they know the kids that are interested in this stuff, and I'll get a call saying, hey, I have somebody that might be interested in the program. What I'll do is I have them come to a meeting to observe first to see if this is what they want, and then if it is, what they are interested in, I'll send them home with a pack of paperwork to fill out with mom and dad. That's usually about it.
If I could add, it's been the best recruiting tool that we've ever had as an organization since our inception. We've had members all over the county, the state, federal government, the military, all public safety, public service style organizations. What we're finding in today is that earlier that we connect and form a relationship, we get to know them, they get to know us. And that really truly does blossom into something special. 2023 Police Officer of the Year, right? Former cadet. What we're also finding is that many of our candidates that are coming in and interested in the career in law enforcement are falling out during the background. They've made some decisions along their life that have affected their ability to move forward. What we like to do is being able to give them the tools now and the understanding now, the decisions they make now can affect some of the things that they want to do and gives them a little bit of a better up to be able to be ready for that opportunity. When we talk about the foot in the door, it really does in a lot of ways. We still have civil service. All the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. But the beautiful part about it is the relationship. We have kids that are phenomenal human beings. They're developing into phenomenal adults. We're excited. We want to be there to help them through their, we're encouraging them. We want them to go off to school. We want them to accomplish the things. But if they choose to at some point and they take that police test, we're going to do everything we can to pull them back into our community because that's where they're from. And we know how good that works for us as a community.
Thank you very much for the
Thank you
presentation.
very much. And the next slide as well has my email on it. If anybody knows kids that are interested in it, feel free to take that down and get in touch with me and I'll reach out.
Thank you
guys.
for the presentation and thanks to
Absolutely.
We'll leave that up for a second. Next order of business, we have the unsafe building at 6602 Fremont Road.
Ms. Nixon is on the line, Jerry.
Yeah, I'm going back to
That's right.
Also, Perry, could you promote S. Meyer? That's our attorney for the night. It's right at the bottom of the attendance list.
Good evening.
So we're just seeing if Marie Nicholson is going to jump on and talk to us.
She raised her hand, I just promoted her.
Okay, great.
Good evening, this is Marie Nicholson on behalf of Face Servicing.
Hello.
So, we've talked in a couple of meetings now. I think we're at the position where we are looking for any updates that will change the course of action of the board. I understand tonight we do have a motion prepared to move forward with the town taking on demolition. So if there's anything you'd like to share with us, please do.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
At this point in time, my client has advised me that they did approve a bid to install a fence around the property to secure it. Unfortunately, I do not have an estimated time for that. I do know that the bid has been approved and that they are seeking the time and date from the vendor that is going to be installing the fence. That's the only information that I have that's different from the last meeting.
So yeah, comments on the board, questions?
Not really.
No, I think,
Hear that.
no.
Okay.
No.
So thank you very much for the update. That being said, we have a motion prepared, but I talked with the attorney a little earlier, so I'm gonna make a motion.
Okay.
So I would like to make a motion to, for the town board to declare the structure at 6602 Fremont Road unsafe and to authorize the code enforcement officer to begin the demolition process by seeking quotes from vendors for us.
Are you allowed to make a motion?
I am. I don't know.
Oh,
I am allowed.
well, I'll second your motion.
Okay, so just before I call for a vote, just want to be clear, we are authorizing the code enforcement officer to seek quotes, and there will be a much bigger, robust resolution when we meet in 2 weeks. And at that point, we will accept the quote and move forward. So if anything changes before the 22nd, please do let us know. But other than that, I would ask for all those in favor. Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. The motion carries. So if you do have any updates, please do send those and please let us, we'll see you at the next meeting with some quotes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so next topic. Should be behind the agenda.
Here you go. You need the motions?
Yeah.
Snapshot.
I decided that it's stuff that don't look good. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I'm trying to. Not.
If they put it up even before we were through our proposal for this.
Okay. So, we have a public hearing, on the agenda for today, and the topic is a possible local development corporation for the town of Manlius. So what, we did was we prepared this set of slides. The goal here is to kind of inform everybody about some of the information about LDCs, what they can do, why the town of Manlius is considering one, and then also to answer some of the questions we received via email and just through conversations and things like that. And once we wrap up with the presentation, I'll take any questions from the board. We do have Steve Mayer here from Harris Beach to help answer any of the questions that are LDC relevant. Thank you for joining us, Steve. Okay, so I'm Manlius. We're exploring a local development corporation. So what is a local development corp? It's an LDC, it's a private nonprofit corporation, often created for the benefit of local government to promote economic development. Under New York State law, LDCs are authorized to enhance economic development and business opportunities by providing, among other things, financial assistance. So this is a entity that is outside of the town of Manlius government that has special certification under New York State law that allows for them to take part in economic development activities. So what can a local development corp do? So just a number of things that I just wanted to kind of throw out there. Relieve and reduce unemployment, promote and enhance employment opportunities, instruct or train individuals to improve or develop skills, is the power to issue bonds, conduct scientific research to attract or retain industry, lessen the burdens of government and acting in the public interest, and ability to construct and acquire development projects. So some of these things that the town government can do, some of the things that town government can't do. And again, this is the special carve out for local development corps to be able to do these different types of things. So kind of local development corps across New York. So there's currently over 350, I want to say it was 368 local development corporations across New York State. This presentation will be available on the highlights from the clerk and from the minutes and the agenda. So that is a link there to all of the local development corporations hosted by the New York State Authority's budget office. For the overwhelming number of LDCs there, it does also provide links to mission statements, budgets, financial reports, annual reports. That way, it's meant to provide easy access to those documents. So then here in Onondaga County, DeWitt, our next door neighbor, has an LDC. As well as Onondaga County and Syracuse, who have multiple. And so these local LDCs do several things. Some of them offer revolving loan funds for local businesses. Some build and operate community facilities. Others can issue tax-exempt bonds for civic facility projects. And some of them operate as a land bank. which is a way to reclaim, generally speaking, abandoned properties, get them remediated and get them back into a productive parcel on the tax roll. And so why form a local development corp in Manlius? So the conversation really just started around a new facility. And then once it became clear that probably wasn't the right way to go about this, we've learned enough about LDCs to continue looking into this. So our adopted comprehensive plan lays out a vision for development of areas of town that could benefit from an entity like the LDC. Some of the ideas that we've had so far is construction of a potential community recreation facility, acquiring land to eventually develop town parks, offering financial assistance through loans and grant funds to local businesses and local organizations, and to partner with local organizations for competitive grant funding. So the LDC, in many of the state grant programs, the LDC serves as another entity that is allowed to apply for grant funding. And they are allowed to partner with organizations in ways that the town is not able to do. So just some of the questions we received, sorry for the small print, I'll go ahead and read those off. So is this to build a new town hall? And like I said, originally this was being considered, but it's no longer the plan. How much does it cost to operate? I looked at some of the local LDCs. It is technically up to the appointed board, but local examples range anywhere from $0 if they're not active to $50,000 to $200,000 per year. Does the LDC use taxpayer money? It varies by LDC. Some municipalities fund the LDC just in their line item budgets. Others will leverage grant funding, so they'll go after grants and use that for funding for their operations. They can have investments that bring in earnings that they can then use to operate, and they can also receive private donations, whether that's in actual money or in property. And so does an LDC require permanent staff? A town LDC would have the ability to hire staff, so that would be up to the board of the LDC. And then things like professional services, so grant writing assistance, legal assistance, these types of things, they would be required, and the LDC would enter into its own contracts to get those services. So what is the timeline for LDC formation here in the town of Manlius? So we're still in the exploratory phase of LDC creation. Depending on the feedback, we could be looking at the end of 24, we could be looking into the next year, we could look at not forming an LDC. And then one of the questions that came up a lot was, I know there's a 2011 report from the comptroller's office that goes into some of the shortcomings of LDCs in general. And so that report was a major inspiration for a law that was signed in 2019 that actually extends the comptroller's ability to audit LDCs, just like they can audit local governments. So in 2019, it's a pretty expansive bill, but one of the core functions was to allow the comptroller to audit LDCs. So with that, I just look forward. Any questions or anything you'd like to ask of before we jump into the public hearing?
Can you expand on what provide financial assistance means in the first slide?
Yeah, so this is through like a revolving loan fund, offering grants, and then there's other ways that they can partner with organizations to provide that financial assistance. Specifically, a lot of times that'll happen with like other nonprofits in the area that have similar goals. They can work with them on grant. Okay, well, I am not gonna leave that up the whole time. So what I will ask is that we just get a show of hands. I'm gonna run a 5-minute timer here, just so that everybody can get an opportunity to speak. And we'll be taking notes of all the questions that come in. And the goal of today is to receive this feedback, answer any questions that we can answer, and then otherwise take these questions, find answers, and provide those answers at a future public meeting. Okay? Yeah, so with that, I would just ask for a motion to reading of the notes. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And motion all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So just show of hands. Who would like to come up? So you your hand up first.
So I actually sent a slide deck to the town board's email.
Yeah.
Could you bring that up?
When did you sign that?
Monday or today.
Today.
And this is one of the reasons, so if you don't know me, I'm Chris McKee, I'm running for Fayetteville Manlius School Board. But the point is like, since I moved here in 2016, I have pontificated to them to form a development corporation
John, do you want me to?
or
see
to
this? Okay.
like basically go after grants and funding. And right now, the biggest thing that prevents us from going after grants, federal dollars.
You gotta address the board.
Oh, sorry, federal dollars and New York State dollars is the address of this building. It honestly kills any chances of the board. Just go to slide 3, please. So as you can see, this is the rural development website, which, you know, if anybody's been to the USDA rural development website, that's where probably 90% of the federal grants funding goes through. And even though you deal with New York State, the office is in Syracuse, so we kind of have home field advantage. When you pop in this address for this town, we can't go after this. Now, if you put that development corporation anywhere else in the town of Manlius, outside of that orange area, you know, you're talking a lot of money. There's 20,000 development corporations inside the United States. Each year, they bring in $10 billion in revenue, and they own $28 billion in assets. I know what I'm talking about. I do this for a living. So I'm telling you, if anybody is opposed to a development corporation, yes. Can they be susceptible to corruption? Can they be susceptible to all those things that we hear about? Absolutely. But no one should be opposed to this. So I don't have any questions. I just came to support.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, and the other thing, it allows greater interaction between like the 3 villages and the school board, because they all benefit from the development corporation. And you don't have to fight over who's putting in sidewalks.
Next up.
I encourage the board to, it appears that you're going to take a long and thoughtful process, and I appreciate that, because the document, the certificate of incorporation, is very, very broad, which does concern me. The thing that it concerns me the most is section 3 that says it empowers an unelected board, basically, an appointed board, to borrow money without limit. And as a taxpayer, I always get a little nervous when there's those kind of capabilities. There will be, you know, you mentioned the cost of the board is 50 to 200,000 a year. I think the WIT is paying far in excess of that. What is it, Mary? 400,000 a year. So you need 50,000 is barely one employee. Probably is an employee. So I would prefer that this scope be limited a little bit more. And in general, conceptually, I really don't like elected officials granting that kind of power to an appointed board. I think that's primarily the essence of my comments.
Thank you. Okay, next up.
Well, I'm opposed to it, obviously. I'll say that up front. So councilors, town managers, residents, I'm frankly appalled that we are here tonight having a public hearing on the creation of a development corporation when there has been no information provided to the residents beyond the first unfilled out articles of incorporation. This is something that we are here to discuss, and frankly, there has been zero information for 6 weeks. 6 weeks ago, Supervisor Deere brought before the town this proposal for the singular purpose of constructing a new town hall. A town hall that our community has not asked for, will not bring any new services to our residents or infrastructure. Since then, Supervisor Deere, as supervisor, has silenced every chance for the community to comment on the proposed LDC, and no dialogue has occurred between councilors during board meetings or during board meetings. I myself have submitted questions repeatedly to this board over the last 6 weeks and have been met with silence. Not a single question has been answered, and that presentation answered one of the basic ones on the 30 questions I have submitted. I have copies of my questions, which I'll be casting out after I'm done here, and I hope that those are actually addressed here in this board meeting and not at a future date. It's been 6 weeks. There is no excuse for not having answers to those questions. An LDC is by law a separate entity, unaccountable to this board or to the residents. It is made up of undisclosed members and is to be granted authority to purchase and develop property by borrowing money or issuing bonds on behalf of the town. I've spoken with several town councils past weekend on the topic of an LDC. In those calls, I've asked how a new entity with no assets or funds is supposed to purchase property. The answer was consistently, as they understand it, they will bond through the town. That means us taxpayers are going to be paying for this property. We're going to be paying to develop it. And I want to make sure everyone understands that when the town bonds for money, it is a debt that needs to be repaid, and it is repaid by the taxpayers. It's our tax dollars. This past week, you all received our 2024 assessments. Mine personally went up over 15%. Does anyone here feel that we should be paying more in town taxes? I don't. The supervisor asked the board to give away our tax dollars to a private entity while receiving nothing in return. Nothing. Any land purchased or developed by the LDC would be owned by the LDC. It is at their purview to sell it, develop it, or do what they want with it. The town and the residents have no control and no say. Supervisor Deere is asking you, the duly elected town councilors, to give away your fiduciary responsibilities to a private entity that you and residents who you were elected to represent have no oversight of or control of. He is asking that you grant undisclosed individuals unrestricted access to our tax dollars. The town already has the power and the processes in place to purchase and develop property for the well-being of the community. We, the residents, have elected you, the town councilors and supervisor, to represent our interests and safeguard our community. Please take this role seriously and exercise the powers that were granted to you. I hereby ask that the board vote no on the formation of Manlius Redevelopment Corporation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up. Come on up. And then if there is anyone here remotely, just use the raise hand function.
I'm Mike Donnelly, Wellwood Ridge. I'm neither for nor against this. I really only heard about it this week on Facebook. I'm trying to get some clear answers, and I haven't gotten any. A lot of this presentation was in conditional and vague language, and the questions are, how is it going to be funded? Who's it going to be responsible to? What exactly is it able to do that the town is not able to do without it? And who will be liable for its debts?
Next up. I know we have one person remotely.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Elaine Denton. Thank you for allowing participation in a public hearing over Zoom. This is a great example of how governments continue to be more efficient with technology. Utilizing Zoom, you can hear from hundreds of constituents without an expensive large boardroom, which would sit empty most of the year. Even our town court uses this technology, which is great since most of what our court deals with is traffic-related tickets, showing that a large municipal building is not needed. Just a note too, we can use ARPA funding the town received and needs to spend we need to spend it by 2026 to make any needed improvements to our current town hall. The town already can apply for grants and for specific projects to boost economic development, like updating our restrictive zoning code, building sidewalks to connect our schools, villages and businesses, maintaining and improving the infrastructure we already have, and I'm sure lowering taxes would help businesses and residents. An LDC is not mentioned once in our comprehensive plan, and it's not needed to implement anything in that plan. If Onondaga County can build an aquarium without an LDC, the town of Manlius doesn't need one to build housing. But that is not what is being currently proposed, although I'm glad to hear that you're no longer considering this to use for a town hall building. That is a good decision. Thank you. I do want to mention that the new municipal building has been proposed without studying our community needs, and the only so-called studies that have been created are documents that ask, can we build a new building, instead of the more important question, do we need to? I have been researching LDCs and have found many issues and concerns with the type of corporations. Here's a quote from our New York State Comptroller on LDCs, and it is I believe from that 2011 report, but Because local authorities fly so low under the radar, operating without oversight and controls required of municipal governments, it is difficult for taxpayers to know how effective they are. My audits have shown an increased risk of waste and abuse by these entities, sometimes leaving taxpayers on the hook for millions of dollars in inappropriate cost, end quote. I took a look at the LDC audits the comptroller's office has done, and you can see comments like the board did not properly approve and monitor projects. The board did not properly manage and monitor the revolving loan fund program. Another one said once funds were distributed, officials generally did not follow up with businesses to ensure they complied with their agreements. There are currently bills in the New York Senate. Because of the known issues with LDCs, reform is needed. And these bills, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Let's go back. LDCs are frequently used to circumvent voter approvals and prevailing wage restrictions that apply to projects directly undertaken by a local government, as well as to circumvent transparency and public scrutiny laws. The end result of this lack of transparency, accountability, and restraint continues to be a significant waste of taxpayer dollars. So those laws are there to reform some of this. So also the Onondaga County has plenty of options that the town can work with to accomplish any of their goals. There is the Onondaga County Office of Economic Development, the Onondaga County Industrial Agency, Onondaga Civic Development Corporation, the Onondaga Community Development Division, the Greater Syracuse Land Bank, which serves all of Onondaga County, and I'm sure there are even more. Please do not create another separate entity that residents will struggle to keep track of. This is not needed and opens the town to additional risk of waste, fraud, and abuse of taxpayer dollars. I ask you vote no. Thank you, but I'm glad to hear that you're going to take time with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've seen that lady before somewhere. Tom Bassett, retired real estate lawyer, longtime town resident, and sometime gadfly here. So I came in without hearing some of the pros and cons that have already been stated about the creation of a Manlius Redevelopment Corporation. So some of my comments are altered as a consequence of listening to what was previously said. I didn't realize that the state comptroller's opinion had been basically, as the supervisor said, kind of the criticisms had been put into a law that allows more oversight over these types of organizations. But what I thought when I saw the material that is on the website, at least, there's a certificate of incorporation, and then there's an authorizing resolution. I thought what was happening tonight was an actual vote on the part of the board to approve the creation, but apparently that's not going to happen. So the certificate of incorporation is mainly boilerplate, but what it doesn't show are who are the initial directors of the proposed corporation. That's important. There's nowhere where there's a set of bylaws. Bylaws are important because the initial directors presumably would approve bylaws. The bylaws would establish a whole array of different things, including the structure of the organization, because this certificate of incorporation presumes it's a membership corporation. So that means that there will be, presumably, if it's approved, members that would attend an annual meeting. They would elect directors. Directors would then elect officers. The officers would run the organization. But we have no idea who any of those people are going to be, how procedurally that would actually occur, where there'd be sufficient protections for some of the concerns that have been raised. So one thing that was done in this proposed certificate, one of the criticisms that the comptroller had made was that there had been in the enabling legislation a provision that the organization could act in the public interest.
That was supposed to be so general that that was removed, and now they just had one of the purposes, lessening the burdens of government. So in the authorizing resolution, though, in addition to the boilerplate, there's a specific provision that says assist in the redevelopment and construction of a new town hall facility and the property. So from what I've seen, that's no longer on the table as far as a new town hall. But the authorizing resolution doesn't define what the property is. It refers to the property, but doesn't say what it is, where it is. So that's a problem, but you're not going to vote on that tonight. So there was a concern about whether the debt would be backed by the full faith and credit of the town, so that could be a problem depending on what the debt was. So the only other observations I have is that later today there's the 5912 North Burdick District Plan, the PUD plan, includes a provision that provides for a limited amount of commercial uses. So, but simultaneously, in a couple of weeks or a week or 10 days or so, the planning board is entertaining an application for site plan approval of the entire project. And if you look at the maps attached to that, it's very interesting. There's a seeming drive-in facility for either a fast food place or possibly a pharmacy with a drive-up window. And then along the entry street, there seems to be provision for 2 adjoining buildings. And when I first saw that, I thought, okay, this is where apparently there's a probability of a relocated town hall and adjoining police station with kind of interconnection. But there's been no discussion of that, that's just speculation on my part. So thanks for your attention, but there are obviously some questions that people have.
Anyone else? Okay.
Wait here.
I didn't want to repeat anything that anyone said, so I was just waiting. So, so you're not going to use this new, if you form an
Local Development Corporation.
to do a new building? And why have you decided that? I don't know if you can give us an answer for that. I'm just curious why.
So just considering the options on the table, it makes a little bit more sense now to engage the developer directly and take it on as a town project.
Right, I would think, I mean, other villages have built fire stations and rebuilt them, it's done that without an LDC, so I don't know why we would have to. I'm not sure what your name was, but I had one question about, so because of our location, the address here, we can't get grants?
Can you pull up that slide?
So I can, so what he was trying to relate is that there are certain areas within town that for certain types of funding through the state are designated as essentially eligible for that funding. Those areas tend to be towards the north of town, the more rural part, and then the current address is not within that area. And so the suggestion is that if the LDC was located somewhere else within town, it would be eligible for different aspects.
So if you were doing a new town, I'm not for or against, I'm just asking questions. So if you were doing a new town office here, or that other spot, would that be considered an address that you could get grants, or should the town offices be built somewhere else where it's more rural to get some grants?
Okay, so just. Okay, so that's great. Okay, just remember it's a public hearing, so we're trying to.
So just questions and concerns,
We're collecting all the questions. We will try to put out answers for everybody.
And
I mean, should we clear up that it's not the address of this building, that it's the fact that we're a municipality? Like the PO box wouldn't.
No, it's the address of this building. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there's multiple layers to this, so we will try to respond to you.
so if the new spot that you would do for another town office still has an address, it's not whatever, that may not be the right place to put it.
So I will say with consideration of where the building is going, one of the major parts is accessibility to the entire town. Response time from the police department.
Right, well, you could put a police, why does it have to be all together? It could be two separate. It's just things to think about. I'm just putting things out there. You know, after your presentation of the police department, I could really get on board with the new police station. I think if they're really using bathrooms that are from elementary schools, that's disgusting. It's just not right. So I'm not saying no, I just looking for, you know, so you're not gonna vote on anything tonight? When would you get back with the answers and have, I assume you're not gonna close the public hearing until you give some answers, so.
Well, we're gonna close this public hearing and then the plan is we will take these questions, we'll draft up a set of answers to those questions as well as updated paperwork and everything that we've been talking about tonight. That would be made publicly available for probably about a month before we consider it. So that people have an opportunity to digest it, and then before any vote is taken, we would have another public hearing with all those answers having been distributed to folks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Can we just leave this public hearing open? Why do we have to close it? If we have questions out there that aren't answered. Well, we have an attorney here who will help with answering that, but we have other people who are.
Actually, all I wanted to do is clarify why the address here is actually a problem. Being a trustee of the village, I understand exactly why it is. It's actually our zip code. 13066 is actually designated as a, how should I put this, a well-to-do area. And so we are not in fact eligible for certain types of federal funding.
It's termed well-resourced.
Yeah.
Well-resourced.
And so what they're doing is you're in a position where that or else you end up down the line where you're not a priority. That's what really goes on. But that zip code actually encompasses a pretty good chunk of the town of Manlius, and actually the properties that are over on Burdick Street are also part of that, by the way, just so you know. So that is just to put it out in the open so everyone knows what's going on rather than being a question, so no one knows why it's different here than across the street, but that's exactly what's going on, just to put it in that context. And it's something we deal with all the time in the village for funding for grants, and we figure out ways in order to deal with it and get funding in different areas. That's exactly what we do. So I just thought I'd do that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Come on.
On screen 5, your page.
Come up to the podium. There's a microphone there, that's so everyone can hear it. It's a pending question.
On screen 5 that you showed in your presentation, it listed a number of things the LDC can do. My question is, was there anything on there that isn't already being serviced by an agency that exists? I mean, banks give loans.
I don't want to answer the question, but could you just state your name?
Oh, Elaine Blyler. I mean, I didn't see anything on there that isn't already serviced by another organization that already exists in government or in private business. Okay, I've worked in development my entire life. I know the shortcomings and the traps that you can get into. I don't think anybody on this board could do it. I don't know who you're gonna get to run it, but I think it could end up being a disaster for the taxpayers in this town. And I don't think the developers in this town need competition from the town board. They have to come to you to get approval. They don't need to compete with you in business too.
Can you clarify one thing? Anybody on the board could do what?
Could run a development company.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. So I would say to close public hearing. So that
I just want to make a statement.
So my intent would be to close public hearing.
I want to have a response from Steve regarding whether we can hold it open for the next time or.
We can schedule another public hearing.
I know we can't, but the question's been raised, why not just keep it open and allow comment on the law?
Well, the general idea is that we get answers back to the public, there's time to digest it, and we don't have this public hearing at every single meeting, because if we don't close it, we will have this opportunity every meeting, and if that's what this board wants, we can do it.
I think, like Sarah said, I just wanted to address the question and then you can close, have a motion to close the meeting.
Okay.
As long as you just address the question. That's all you're asking, right, Sarah?
Yeah.
Just for the benefit of the public.
Yeah, so Steve, if you'd like to help us out here. So I think we've got a lot of questions about how LDCs are funded, who is responsible, if they take on debt, who is liable for said debt, kind of what the things that an LDC can do. From the last person to speak, what is the difference between private entities that can already do these things and what we're doing? So I'm not gonna ask you to answer everything, but just to the best of your ability, if you can just address some of those main questions. That way we can have a little bit of resolution tonight, but then continue kind of the Q&A as we go forward.
Yeah, so one of the main benefits of an LDC is liability protection, and it's technically a bankruptcy remote entity. So we meaning us being Harris Beach, represent a number of local development corporations around the state. And depending, excuse me, depending on where they're located, their, I guess, mission may differ. For example, down in Yates County, they have an LDC, and traditionally all it does is it administers a revolving loan fund. And going to the one woman's comment about, well, banks can loan money. Traditionally, what I've seen with these revolving loan funds is their low interest loans basically serving as bridge financing. So to the extent that there's a gap, an LDC could come in, if and provide that gap in financing to make a project work. Going back to the bankruptcy remote and liability protection, the other benefit is, again, when we've done this in the past, is if you have, call it a contaminated site, whether the town board would be amenable to doing it, but there's risks with the town, for example, holding fee title to a contaminated site. If there were, anything that were to come about that, the town would essentially be on the hook, which in essence is the taxpayers. The use of an LDC can kind of shield the town from those risks while still getting to the same endpoint. So the LDC, for example, we've done in other areas of the state, is the LDC would take title to the property, apply for grants, get grant funding, and we just did one last year where we were going through the brownfield cleanup program. We remediated the site, and then it was just a matter of, okay, what do we want to do with this site? What do what's the local constituents want? What's the town want? And market it to something of that similar use. And you can achieve that because traditionally the way that these boards are made up is one of the benefits of an LDC is its ability, depending on if you meet certain criteria, to issue tax exempt debt. The benefit of this, whereas, if a town were to do a GO bond, the debt ceiling comes into play there. With an LDC, it doesn't. And traditionally, for example, for hospitals or whatever, if they were doing an expansion, an LDC could issue tax exempt bonds to fund that expansion, and it's non-recourse debt, meaning it's non-recourse to the LDC as well as, for example, in this case, the town. So if the hospital were to stop paying on the bonds, it's the hospital's debt. It's not the town, it's not the LDC. And going back to the makeup of the boards, which from listening to some of the comments, it seems like the concern of, well, will the hopes and desires of the local constituents of the town be addressed? Traditionally, what we see of the board makeup is either, in order to issue tax exempt bonds, I'll back up. The federal tax laws say that you have to be an instrumentality of the municipality in which you're operating. So in this case, it would be the town. There's certain factors that you have to meet, but if you do meet that, and one of them is a connection essentially between the LDC board and the town. So traditionally what you see is LDC boards being made up of, in part, town board members, whether they're directly appointed or whether it's ex officio. So that way you still have representatives of the town who are also cognizant of concerns of local constituents that can also be addressed in voting on matters that the LDC may take on. I don't know if that helps. If you have other more specific questions, certainly.
So just one on this is not exactly LDC, but on the public hearing issue, is there any advantage or disadvantage of closing the hearing and reopening it with the revised information, since the information we have now is actually no longer what's being considered?
No, there's no risk either way. It's basically up to you guys how you would like to handle it.
And the intent too is if we schedule another public hearing, it gets another public notice, and just notice legally, if we hold this open, we don't have, like, we can't, we don't have a legal requirement to, repost it.
But I think I would say it's important to have the accurate information to be deliberated at a new public hearing, because the current information is apparently no longer accurate.
Joan, there's a hand up in the back.
I just, I would, again, I don't know what all this is about, but if there was a clear vision of what you want to do, your slide shows many things that you could do. Do you really want to get into, do we want to get into the loan business? Do we want to get into the real estate business? Do we want to do this? Do we do that? I think there should be a clear vision of what you're going to do and stated to the public. And I haven't heard a clear vision.
So I think that some of the benefits is just, so I agree with you, and I think we can do that. But I also think it's important to see like the broad picture, like everything an LDC can do. I think that's important. But I agree with you.
I don't think we should go into this, and I don't think, my opinion is that just because you can do all this doesn't mean we should. Just because we're able to do it, it doesn't mean the board should do that. And I would think you could limit what the LCD could do in your law or whatever. And, do we want to be in the loan business? Do we want to be in the real estate business? That's, you have to decide if you're going to do it, there's got to be a clear vision. And that's what makes me uncomfortable, that there is no clear vision of what you exactly want to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just want to address some of the comments in the questions, in any statement that, anyone hasn't heard clear delineation between board members during the board meetings. So for myself, I'm researching, right? I may not be qualified to run an LDC, so I won't volunteer to be on that board if such LDC is created. But before I vote on it, I'm going to know everything I can about it and all the pros and the cons. So there's research we have to do that we wouldn't necessarily do in a public meeting, where you just sit and watch me scroll on my computer and read about an LDC or make phone calls to places that have LDCs. But in addressing the 2011 New York State Comptroller report, it's over 13 years old. And I understand, I believe they're working on an updated report, but we have the amendment that was made in 2019. The 2011 Comptroller report gives a municipality that's considering an LDC an opportunity to include those findings in the creation of bylaws and in the creation of operating procedures, right? You have to take all the negative findings and in consideration with all the positive things that can come from an LDC, consider it, and then create your bylaws and create your operating procedures to address the shortcomings that other LDCs have had, right? So it's not a negative all the way around because a negative report exists. And that's at least what I'm doing in my time between research and learn as much as I can about it, so that when we do talk about it in front of you in a more open discussion between the board, we're well educated on it and we really understand what we're putting forward and what we're going to vote on. I just have to check the notes I took while you were all talking. I appreciate everybody's time and giving us your feedback and asking these questions. Another thing about a building, building's not going to stop all the other infrastructure that we're responsible to provide to the residents of this town, including sidewalks and recreational buildings and anything else. But I can tell you, if I come into meetings here, for 20 years and working for the village in a paid volunteer capacity and coming and dealing with the town. And not much has changed in this building to the point where it's becoming a financial draw on the taxpayers. And I am a taxpayer, and it needs more than fixes, I believe. It's not ADA compliant. And to where we could put ARPA funds, we should consider, but I think if you look at the total scope of what this needs to become ADA compliant, or what it needs to do to accommodate the current staffing that we have, and any growth of staffing that we may have in the future, it's well beyond what we have at the bank for ARPA funds, and it would be a multi-phase approach. Where looking for land that is more centrally located, maybe in a zip code that makes us eligible for funding and grant opportunities. Also gives an opportunity for our police department to have better response times to other residents, because currently right now the plan is to keep our police department and to continue to support it in becoming community oriented. And I think the chief's doing a fantastic job, and his team's doing a fantastic job at doing that. And having the space that they currently have, I don't know if anybody here has visited the police department, but there's not a lot of room there to entertain residents. If, say, you wanted to come in a group and take a tour or meet with officers, or meet with a community policing unit, or for them to host an event. For them to host an event to involve the community usually requires them to go outside of their department and find a location that will host them with or without additional cost. So one building where we could house the police and have a town office that's functional and ADA compliant, and that allows us to have everyone in our community be able to access it and visit safely, and to have those accommodations, I think is something that we responsibly need to look at, and we need to look at now. With the cost of things just constantly going up, the sooner the later. If an LDC becomes a way to help some of those infrastructure type deals, we owe ourselves to look at it. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to do it, but we should definitely look at it and get all the information before we make a decision on it. So again, I appreciate everybody coming out and giving us your opinion, but there's a lot of work we're doing it's why there's not been a broader discussion in front of the public about it, because we're all doing our own research on it. So if anybody wants to contact me and give me, your feedback or point me to some research that you're doing, I would appreciate it and accept it.
The open point still stays in. I like that you brought up the discussion of the town hall and the police department, because that was originally why we were looking in the LDC. And I want to make it very clear that there has never been a comprehensive list of what is wrong with our current buildings, what it would take to get them to compliance with ADA, what it would be benefits from consolidating them in one place. The only things we have is a 1999 study, and that 1999 study actually says that one of the options is to renovate the existing town court and the police building. That is an option that was provided.
In 1999.
In 1999. And I would say that 25 years later, what is needed from policing is very different than what it was 25 years ago. So using that as a baseline, there is no baseline this town has put together on what is needed. It has not been communicated to residents. So before we do any studies on any buildings that we want to build, it has to be clear, what is it that town residents will receive from it? What are the benefits? How much is it going to cost? What are the different options? And it cannot only be, this is a new location that we can't expand our current town hall, because this is centrally located. I mean, the location you're looking at was right over there. You can't say that building in Twin Pines Shores or whatever it's called is centrally located when we're a mile from it. And as far as response times to the police, I know the fact that they split the town up into 3 sections, and they have patrol officers in every section to make sure they have appropriate response times to everyone. So having a police building in the middle of the town is not necessarily going to change the response times. So there are a lot of factors that this board needs to look into, and all of that information needs to be shared in town board meetings or publicly, however you want to do it, but there needs to be an open dialogue. And we cannot have another occurrence where we get an LDC or similar document that is not filled out and just put in front of the town residents as, here, we're doing this, there is no information. 6 weeks, and there was zero information. That is not acceptable.
Can we have some acknowledgement though that that never got voted on because town councilor said we weren't gonna vote on it?
Vote on the LDC?
That document that was put out, we said we're
It
not.
doesn't matter if you voted on it or not. The issue is that you put out a document stating that you wanted to create an LDC. And that is what the motion was, and everything was together. There was never a, hey, town, what do you think of this idea? Very similar to last 24th meeting where, hey, town, here's a quarry commission. We don't have any discussion. You don't see this. You didn't even put this on the agenda to what, the day of? That is not acceptable. This is
Yes,
the town board
that's why it
representing the
stopped.
town.
That's why it stopped, and that's why we're having a public meeting, is because of that, and I think I brought that up.
Well, I appreciate that we are having the discussion now, but I'm saying that this is unacceptable that we haven't got to this point. And I want to reiterate, I have 6 weeks, I have sent emails to the whole town board with questions, and I have not got answers. If I've taken the time out to repeatedly contact the board, and there is no response beyond, okay, I got your email, thank you, I appreciate those ones, I got your message.
Yeah.
Or here's some more information, that's great as well, but I had specific questions. They're not answered.
Yeah, I forward them to our attorney, and when I get response from him, I'll give you some more, but the deputy supervisor did reach out on behalf of the board to say, hey, we're gonna look into this, and we'll get you some detailed answers to you.
I did have some thoughts I wanted to share.
Yeah.
So Matthew, I'll apologize personally. I was extremely busy with Earth Fest, largely more so than I ever anticipated. I did get your questions and I have intended to respond. So I apologize. I simply have not had the time. So I hope you can very well. Thank you. So I agree also. I would like a study on the building. I feel that that's just like, even when they did 81, like this whole big project, and they've been studying it for 15, 20 years. They started with, what would it mean to keep the viaduct the way it is? Like, oh, because that is the baseline. And I know that there was a study done, but it is outdated, and it would help us to be able to compare all the other options to a baseline. And I think that would be helpful to me, and perhaps ARPA funds could be used to that. I think we do need a new building. My guess is that those numbers will say that it would be exceedingly difficult, expensive, if not impossible, especially based on wanting to consolidate the town departments to all be in one location. Obviously, we can't fit a police department here. And I think that it would help to express to the public what the costs are compared to that starting point. But having said that, at I believe our last town board meeting, deputy town manager, Kay Blake, and we had a presentation from the police department as well on all of the failings of this current building. Like, it's not just the ADA compliance, that's a major issue. It's also the court compliance. There are inherent safety issues in this building. I have heard from a couple of you, like, there's no community benefit to a new town hall. I disagree with that. There are a lot of opportunities with the new town hall to make it more community oriented, and that would provide a direct benefit to the community. We as the town of Manlius, all of us, employ dozens and dozens of people here in a police department that we're responsible for. And right now they're working in facilities that were designed for school children, and they've been there for longer than I've been alive. And I am 36. That's a long time. I'm sitting on a board in a temporary facility. The police department's been sitting there since it didn't even exist. So that's unacceptable. That's unsuitable. Like, how can we, as the town of Manlius, all the residents and the citizens of this community, think that that's okay? And so we have to change that. And in this building, we've had concerns. We've had safety and security risks here. Our town manager was put in a very dangerous situation. And that person was allowed to just walk right into the building. There's numerous access points. Like that, it's 2024. You can't do that anymore. Our court is not compliant. There's no elevator in this building. If you're in a wheelchair, you can't get around this building. It's so energy inefficient, I can't even begin to think about that. So we have shared extensively, and it's all recorded and everyone can watch it, the failings of our current facilities, both here and at the police department. And it's all available for you to watch if you happen to miss that. So it's not a study, but it is a lot of information about what's wrong with our buildings and why we feel a new town hall is far more suitable. On the LDC, I have reached out to someone I was connected to who up until very recently served as the director of an LDC in a local city. And I plan to sit down with them in the coming weeks. So a big reason why I didn't reply to Matthew's questions was because I didn't know the answers. And we're gathering that information. So I would not have voted on the LDC because he raised good questions, as have many of you. So this public hearing is an opportunity. Like, I know a lot of you are like, these are our questions. We want the answers. Well, we don't know all the answers. So we hear your questions. That's so helpful to us. We can go and do more research. I think there are a lot of potential benefits. There are, I don't even know how many LDCs in New York State, but I know the county uses them all the time. They're always making new ones for different purposes. So I understand there's a lot of ambiguity and a lot of questions, but there are a lot of benefits that could come from this. So I'm hoping that everyone will keep an open mind as we continue to have this conversation. Hopefully, as we continue to do research and explore, we can be more transparent with you as we gather more information. Yeah, that's all my thoughts.
Did you have a comment, Lisa?
Just very briefly, I mean, the commenters in this public hearing have stated the concerns as I have had them as well. I mean, the point here is that we didn't arrive here with a resolution to vote on. We arrived here to have a public hearing on a proposal. To Mr. Denton's point, any councilor can forward a motion to declare, April 5th, the day that we honor their dog. The board can discuss it and say, I don't think that's in people's best interest. So, we're here talking about the pros and cons of the town creating a local development court. Great. I don't think the answer is to shut down the discussion and say that's a terrible idea, stop it. I think we need to continue to tease out the risks, which, let's face it, there is the opportunity for mismanagement and malfeasance in any board, committee, or responsible entity engaged in anything. And alternate approaches all have similar risks and vulnerabilities to fraud, waste, and abuse. So simply saying there might be fraud, waste, and abuse is not a sufficient reason to stop talking about the opportunity. Actual fraud, waste, and abuse certainly is, but the potential for fraud, waste, and abuse is not sufficient alone to say, let's not explore this opportunity or option. And that's it for me for today.
So I'll add a comment that the conversation started out of a desire to access resources for the town. So as a nonprofit, and I've learned also related to the zip code that we're in, we want to ensure that we're utilizing resources that are available to serve in the best interest of the residents of the town. We've had a group of people come to us asking for a recreational facility that includes swimming and other options. That certainly could be something that could be part of what the LDC pursues. We did an initial brief survey at EarthFest on Saturday, but that needs to be a continued conversation from the town. The people who came and spoke with us about it said they have about 600 people that have expressed an interest. Before we move forward with anything, we would want to gather information about what the community would like. So that's the kind of project that potentially could fall under this and could be eligible for additional funding. So again, these are conversations that we're having.
Neglect to mention, it's very important to me that we maintain a distinct and separate conversation about these two things. And the fact that perhaps sloppily, this first proposal for a development core was tied specifically to the project of a new town hall. I think we clearly understand now that these are two separate projects that require two separate opportunities for the public to weigh in on what it is they want, what it is they want us to do. And because again, the development board can do a number of different things. And so it's important to not just simply be tied to this one idea of a project for a new town facility, which you may be for, you may be against. Let's find out what's really in the best interest of everybody. We gotta maintain both of these tracks of consideration separately. And give the public opportunity to weigh in on both.
Right.
Separately.
And before we vote on it, can we just clarify again why we don't want to leave it open? We have done it in the past with other things.
Because we're gonna change the documents that
What's
are
being commented upon is going to change.
Okay, so for those of you who wanted to leave the public hearing open, I hope you understand, we're gonna close it so that we can provide updated documents, and then we'll have a public hearing about that, rather than everyone continuing to weigh in on outdated information.
But we need advance notice. The documents have been posted very, very late, and everybody has things to do.
We can do that.
We'll ensure that.
We
I'll
really
make- I'll make-
need a week or 10 days.
Yeah.
And if you can't meet the deadline, then you should postpone.
We normally do it, we normally post the agenda on Friday, so that's when we have that
That's
meeting.
not enough time.
What I'll say,
But we could do it in anticipation of the following.
the intent is to announce the date the information is posted at a meeting, and then let it sit out there and schedule the public hearing for at least 2 meetings out, giving 4 weeks for everybody to review those things.
Because it's complex for everybody, and most people have day jobs. and-
Yeah.
We can give you more time for that.
So just before you spoke, Matt, before your hand went up, did you have more to
Well,
add?
I had a question.
Yeah.
Why close down
The meeting?
the YMCA? Did it close
Oh,
down?
no, it
It's
didn't.
no longer a facility with a pool or recreational?
It has a pool.
It has a pool. Yeah, the concern was.
So you're gonna hold it something to compete against it, but the taxpayers will find it.
If you would like to come up to the podium, because no one can hear you on the,
You can hear me back here.
well, we've got people that can't hear you and are zooming into the meeting, so the microphone is helpful for them to hear.
So the YMCA is currently operating,
It
and they
is.
charge people a dues to go in so they can fund their operation. But we're going to build something that competes with the YMCA, and then the taxpayer's gonna finance it and fund and pay for all the employees.
No.
So we have.
People brought us,
Can I just stop?
Yeah.
So right now, we have a group of people that have expressed a serious interest in a larger pool facility. People have also expressed interest in a number of other recreational facilities they'd like to see. We have reached out to the schools to see if they are interested in any types of partnership. This is not to replace any existing infrastructure or facilities. We have convened the study group of the folks that are interested. We've set up about, I think we have made it clear, it's about a 12 to 18-month timeline. That's gonna be data collection, studying, and then presenting a report to the board.
But ultimately, the taxpayers are gonna finance this,
If there is support for it, yes.
but shouldn't it go for a vote for all the taxpayers to decide whether they wanna
So
finance
if
it?
the town was gonna borrow money to build something, that is, voters have an opportunity to say no to.
Okay. All right,
it's,
But we're gonna-
it's an idea that was brought up to the board, and we're gonna investigate it because it is.
Also, this is about the LDC, this is not about any of the projects, so with that, I thank everybody for their participation. But we will have future meetings about this, about the LDC, we will have future meetings about the building, and in the very far future, we will have meetings about the potential for a community pool. So, with that.
Tim Kelly has.
Yeah, we've got
hand
two
up.
more hands.
I'll be real quick. Look here. So just to clarify what you were just saying, John, what started that conversation about the pool was the closure of Casanova College. Because FM and ESM swim teams were utilizing that facility, and they don't have the resources anymore now to do that. They've been using Cavalry during the summertime. Obviously, they can't use that in the wintertime, so that's what started that conversation, just to clarify.
Thanks,
Pool's no
Tim.
longer there. Correct.
I just want to make the quick comment that before we do a public board or a public hearing, can we do a working session possibly on LDC where we actually have a full open dialogue between board members and residents on here's all the different ways you think that it would be beneficial, here's the, like, I think, this is not the proper way to actually have that discussion.
I'm sure we could get that scheduled, I think we'd all be interested in that. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Good suggestion.
With that, all those in favor of closing the public hearing? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Greatly appreciate feedback.
Thank you for coming.
So next up, we have the PUD district plan for
Well,
five.
let's move on. We have guests here. I want to do them on the agenda.
Yes, 5912 North Burdick Street. This is for a brief presentation of the district plan and some renderings. And the only thing the board is to consider tonight about this is referral to other budgets.
Sure.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Just to get going. I said, I'm not gonna ask you to-
That's what I heard you say, Sarah.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask you. Just gonna remember that. And thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
We're up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Rojas. I'm from Min Architects, accompanied by Scott Freeman from Keckler and Freeman Associates of the landscape architect on the project. We're excited to talk about 5912 North Burdick Street. It's currently a 5.8 acre site, approximately 200 by 1,000 feet deep. It's currently zoned CB, commercial district, and its current uses. There's a business office use there, retail store, and it's mainly utilized for storage and shipping of construction materials. So the current owner thinks that this is a great opportunity to see this site in a more useful overall use for the town and the expansion of the need for additional residential units. This is the current site plan, and we have done a wetland delineation that shows that there are no current wetlands within our 5.8 acre site, so we can fully develop that. We have come up through a couple of iterations, working, with several groups to kind of define and understand what can be done on this site. And you'll read through the district plan. Summary of the site plan that you see before here. We did utilize the two district plans that were formally approved by the town, both for Twin Ponds and for the Hybrid Street district plan as the framework to see what's been accepted in the past, and we've built upon that. One of the main differences that you'll notice in the PUD that's presented is an increase from the Twin Ponds of a commitment for 5% of the dwellings to be designated as workforce housing. This district plan has increased that to 10%, where the mixed use component of this project towards the front of the site, and we'll just quickly flip through some of these here. Along the front section of this site in the white area is about 8,000 square feet of commercial space on the first floor. That would be between 2 and 3 different tenant uses. There have been a couple that have been identified. One has a retail storefront / showroom. Another one is for office business use. And that out of the 8,000 square feet, we may have a couple thousand square feet remaining for an additional user. There's no drive-through, no anything like this. This is just, parking up front, cleaning up a lot of what the existing site has, and just have storefronts along North Burdick Street. We've offset the buildings, away from the residential area, creating more of a deeper kind of buffer between them. And we have provided, some imagery on some initial concept of what this could potentially look like. But again, this is all in development, can change. We're always looking to get initial response to modify this plan as necessary to have a more collaborative relationship and make sure everyone's happy in what we're proposing here. So the total uses, let's read through here. We are proposing 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit. We are proposed in the current plan approximately 172 units, residential units, in addition to that 8,000 square feet of commercial space. We will be properly screening from any neighboring properties and achieving, sustainability efforts throughout the building, having a fully electric building and no gas consumption, which follows the state mandates or where the state is moving. and including charging stations for any electrical vehicles as well. So we hope I don't know.
Yeah, not really, but I'll go over a few things sidewise if you don't mind. I guess thank you for the opportunity to consider a PUD. I like to start with, let's look at what's there now. You have an not abandoned, but half-used building. In the day, it was a hardware store. It was a lumber yard. It was a design center, and then things changed. And I think that's the beauty of the PUD. So, and this is the process, and just so the public knows, and I know you guys know this, but this is the opening of an idea for consideration. If the idea is generally welcomed, we get to possibly get the zone change. That's subject to a public hearing, so we can go through the whole process. You can bring your questions to the table, and I can say we design in a collaborative nature, and the town does as well. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with the hybrids project, but we had taken a lot of the comments from the public. One of them was a connection from the facility to the community, and that was from our site to the street, and then along the street to an adjacent property on the developer's property. So it's not some of the, the town's going to give potentially permission to change the use, but there'll be some things that'll benefit the town. So that sidewalk connection is on the developer's time, so that'll be a benefit. If you change the use, that's what the developer gets. We get some things back. So that's one thing that was given back to community connection. Alzheimer's unit next door they liked the use because it enabled people next to them. They wanted the connection. So now it's not just isolated development. We've connected to the town. We've connected to the neighborhood facility. You can walk and go throughout. So those are good things. Over there was a building that's, it's an open court. It was unused. It didn't work with the zoning. By opening up the PUD, we opened it up to housing. We need housing. There was a concern for screening. We put screening on our property. Across the street said, you know what, I like that screening. We'd like a little more. So we actually have in the drawings and in the agreement, we're going to put some screenings and plant material on their property. So I think the reason I bring this up is I don't know what everybody's interest in. How do you view this from the outside looking in? But from looking in out towards the community, I see the replacement of this building as an opportunity to bring more people into the community. If you look at this site, you have housing to the north, housing to the west. You have a golf course to the east, which actually would welcome a connection to it.
And we're discussing with the golf, the course owner to making a pedestrian connection from this site that allows for direct walkable connection to the links.
And if you go into any community, if you look at any marketing study, people want walking and connections. They don't want fences and borders, and that's what we were able to do in the other project, and that's what we're able to do here. To the south, and Anthony's rendering, that's all wetlands, so people say, oh, that's horrible. Well, it's actually not, because right now all the storm water goes untreated, and whatever runoff comes off those neighbors, those cars, those roads is not doing anything good for those wetlands. When we do this development, we will have to intercept every bit of water that comes off our site, contain it, cool it down, and release it, and it's going to improve that water quality. So it's not just going to be a hole in the ground. I know for a fact that there's no infiltration. It's going to be standing water. So it's not just going to be a hole in the ground. We're going to, for housing, you can't just dig a hole in the ground next to housing and say, there's your water feature. It's going to be mosquitoes and weeds. So what we're going to commit to is aeration. So the stormwater to meet DEC requirements has to be at least 6 foot deep. We're going to put aerators in there. So to get people who want to live there, they'll have a water feature there. So you have a little bit of road noise, but you'll have noise from the aerators, and not only that, they'll be the top of the water facility has to be mowed so the town can access it and maintain it, because what's going to grow in the pond is phragmite. It grows everywhere. That's the tall stuff you see everywhere. It's invasive. It's nearly impossible to get rid of. The only thing you can do is cut it and deal with it. But anyway, there'll be a great walking path to the links, around the wetlands, and throughout the facility.
It's my understanding that they're interested in connecting that to the Berry Canal.
Yeah, the development team has connections with the golf course, and they're pursuing that. So
I just talking about the canal trail. It's a bike right away just to the south of it. And they think that this would be a great connection, a great dense
project, densely populated project to access those trailways and be free.
That's beautiful.
That's the question I had. So the golf course is indicated to you that they would allow the public to pass through. You wouldn't have to be.
Yeah, we're gonna work on the conditions and the terms, but just like with the sidewalk, with hybrid, it wasn't, we didn't just check a box, there'd be a lot of discussion.
Oh, I know what you're gonna do about it. That's great. If they're open.
Yeah,
to it,
so
I think
we
that's-
want
I live there, so.
Yeah, because what the developer's doing is creating housing, so. What do people want with housing? They want a safe place to go and walk and green environment, so we're really looking forward. It's not a public hearing, but we're open to.
And if this is, and if this is the property where the smell was kind of meandering, we think a conversation with the county, seeing a large investment coming into this neighborhood may open up their eyes a little more. And be a little more
I was
responsive.
wondering now.
So what's your time frame? Because theirs is 2026.
Well,
We may, we'll see.
their timeframe depends a lot on what we do. So I know I worked with, the team here to drop this draft district plan. Again, it's built very much off of the existing PUDs that we've looked at. I think the biggest change that I hope folks are noticing is the increase in the workforce housing that is also in line with the roadside requirements, for the pilots that they offer. And so, obviously, I think, let's remember back to, Twin Ponds and Garden Park. We started with the district plan and some renderings, and we had months of meetings. And so the goal here is to take what we learned from those previous PUDs. We've got a vague idea of what's gonna go in there. What I would be hoping tonight we can do is refer these to the Manlius Planning Board and the County Planning Board, so we can get that initial feedback. And what I would be proposing is much like we've done with the other PUDs and some of the other code changes, local laws, is to bring the planning board in for a work session where we can bring in the developers, we can kind of ask some of our more pointed questions as we get further along the process. And so essentially now, it's gonna take about 4 weeks to get back from the other planning boards. So whether it's, and then all internal comments and feedback, we can set up a meeting with developers, we can have them back if we want to share comments with them and continue to shape this district plan to meet the needs of our community.
As that moves forward, if we get meeting with WEP, you think it would be beneficial to have them come?
We will see.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get county comments, just to,
Exactly,
bring in county comments. SACWA's gonna have a whole list of items, this is not, I say this for the public's benefit. We have to go to public hearing, this is if they support the idea, if they support the idea. We could go through site plan approval and there's literally, no lie, 100 items. Stormwater, sanitary capacity, traffic, wetlands, the whole list. So it might not fly anyway, but initially, or it might be reduced or modified. So there's public interaction, there's community interaction.
So I do have one.
Yeah, go for it.
contribution. Okay, so I appreciate at number M, that you will comply with the law, that's very good. But we, in one of the other places we've asked that in the construction process, that you design at least 1% of the units to be wheelchair accessible from the beginning. Don't wait for a tenant that needs that. It saves you money, it saves time for the tenant, and you just design it to be accessible from the beginning.
So I think what we can do is please take an opportunity to read through the district plan. If you guys could send us a presentation with like renderings and the maps and stuff, we'll make that available to the public and to the board. And then really we're just looking for feedback over the next couple of weeks.
So we're gonna forward this to the plan.
That would be my hope, yeah. And then that way too, again, it is.
So I did want to ask, so on item J, I mean, I have my glasses on and off and I'm reading that what we have before us is simply the PUD district plan, but I'm not seeing where the commitment to 10% workforce housing is written.
Right under J, 10% of the dwellings within the PUD.
Oh, if you have a printed copy, it might not have been.
It's not in the printed copy. Okay.
Okay,
I can
so,
give you this.
All right, and so then my other
no,
comment.
just send it, because we all need it.
Sure,
So
sure. You know, what are we referring to planning and county planning has to include maps, right?
Yeah.
Not just this, we want.
That.
All right.
That's the one off our website.
Way to get in with the last minute.
I just have one question about, do you know of or suspect any contamination or hazardous material cleanup that has to occur just given what the site was prior. I know it's been there from what, seventies or eighties?
Yep. We haven't done environmental testing of the site to understand what the soil conditions are yet, so that is definitely a part of the process. But before usually before developers invest in doing these testings, understanding that the project can be developed in the first place is kind of.
No problem, it's just personal curiosity, so I'm ready.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the board?
I think
Yeah.
it's just a comment.
If I may, have you done a market study yet on the number of studio apartments that you're including in this? Because 20 to 30, it seems kind of high for studio apartments. So has there been a market study done to assess that need?
So I think there hasn't been a specific housing study done to this town. I think there are, countywide housing studies that have been done. The reason behind, I guess, the increase in smaller, more efficient units is essentially a trend and understanding, we as an architecture firm work on many housing projects, and we understand that the need and the rate in which the smaller units are leased as opposed to larger units is so much higher, the need is so much more, that it's kind of guiding us into this ratio of units on this project, understanding that there's the recent grad, there's the empty nester, there's, a large swath of community members that are in need of, and they don't want to maintain thousands of square feet of residential living space, they just want what they need, and it's 600, 700, 800 square feet. So I think that's kind of the response and what kind of guided us to this ratio.
But that square footage could allow for a 1-bedroom too, for what you're saying. And most we struggle to lease up 0 bedrooms at my work there. We have to offer incentives at times to lease them up. So that's why I'm just asking about your market research on the need for that in our town.
Yeah, the project is primarily 1 bedrooms and studios is kind of the largest percentage, and then we have 2 bedrooms as well. So yeah, there'll be a balance, and as we develop the project, I'm sure we'll continue to aggregate data that'll help kind of fluctuate that ratio.
So I want to add to what Sarah requested about handicapped accessible universal design principles for older adults who want to age in place in the community. So first floor location is ideal for that.
All of our units will be accessible with elevators. So all of our levels will be approachable and accessible and can be converted to the needs of grab bars and wider openings and just pathways that allow for use of all the units. So all of that, 100% of our units will have that ability to
appropriate height counters.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we follow ADA regulations throughout all of our units.
Thank you.
What effect do you think this will have on Erie Village?
So this is not a public hearing, there will be plenty of time in the future, but this is a presentation to the board of the plan, and we're just looking to move this. But we do have quite an agenda still ahead of us.
And the planning board will have hearings also, right?
Well, the planning board will take the recommendation, it'll come back to us, we'll have a public hearing, and then when it gets to site plan approval, planning board will have another opportunity for public hearing.
Sir, so you're welcome to come to the public hearing, and you're also welcome to email the board your thoughts or questions in the meantime.
So.
Yeah, it's not a public hearing, so we don't take questions during this.
I think they read it. They just read it.
Motion to refer 5912 North Burdick District Plan to the Manlius Planning Board.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
County is awesome.
You got the next one.
I would make the same motion to send it to the Onondaga County.
Keating, second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up on the agenda, we have our yearly renewal of the CIRO contracts. So these are the same exact contracts we've seen year after year for the CIROs, after consultation with the police department and previous conversations with the schools. We have added a piece in here to be compensated for the vehicles that are provided as part of the CIRO agreement. The only additional language to this is for a $3,500 a year payment to help us cover some of the costs of maintaining those vehicles for the CIROs for their specific uses at the school. So there is, the next item is the SPO. It's like a memo I put together. So for the SPOs, they have a specific allowance of equipment that they can buy up to, and we're looking to increase that allowance. So any questions? And this is, again, the hope is that we can come together with the schools and develop a long-term plan for both the CIRO and the SPO agreements, so that we are not, ratifying 11 or 12 contracts every single year for.
So do we need motions for each of these separately?
Well, before we do that, though, I just want to make note that on the Syracuse Manoa one and the Fayetteville Manlius ones, the terms of agreement dates need to be corrected before we approve them, because, the terms of the FM ones go back to 2021.
Yeah.
So, yes, for the same agreement year after year, except for the terms and dates. So, let's not.
So as amended.
We need to use find and replace.
Yes.
That, and I guess I would reiterate some things that these are just coming to it.
From the shakeups here at Town Hall.
Coming from to
If
us.
they're not in the agenda on Friday,
Right. No, yeah, the agenda on Friday didn't include quite a few of the.
Yeah, so the idea that the public would have any chance to know what was in these agreements when they didn't, and then the version that appeared was not the final version and then another version was put in, is really not.
Okay, I would like to address that.
Okay.
We have just had a town clerk resign of 16 years, and we are trying to keep the wheels of government moving. And as the person who has been tasked with picking up a lot of that slack, I'd just like you to know that I'm doing everything I can as a part-time supervisor. And the feedback is really appreciated, but I do think the tone is a little curt for me and for the town hall staff that is still here at this meeting that are trying to put forward the best product possible.
All right, so thank you very much for that. May I ask?
Yes.
Are these time sensitive?
Well, yes.
Okay.
The CIRO agreements are, the SPO agreement is not, those usually get adopted in September. But yes, and the hope is to address that in the future.
So are you looking for some motion?
If the board would like to make a motion, yes.
Alright, so I'll just run through these, look if that's okay with everyone.
And if you want to do as amended for dates.
And the names of the officers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but I'll do each one separately. Motion to authorize the supervisor and chief of police to sign the CIRO program 2024 agreement with the East Syracuse Manoa Central School District for Officer Kumar as amended.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the supervisor and chief of police to sign the CIRO program 2024 agreement with the Fayetteville Manlius Central School District for Officer Golden as amended.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the supervisor and chief of police to sign the CIRO program 2024 agreement with the Fayetteville Manlius Central School District for Officer Brogan as amended.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the supervisor and chief of police to sign the CIRO program 2024 agreement with the Fayetteville Manlius Central School District for Officer Palmer as amended.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. So next up, we do have a memo drafted that it details our intended updates to the SBO contracts with the school districts. So this is amending item 14 of these existing contracts. Item 14.6, this is where the school district and the town have agreed to an allotment of up to $10,000 per SBO officer per academic year for the cost of uniforms, equipment, training, additional costs. And so after some conversations with the police department and administrative staff, the request is to go up to $13,000 a year. And then there's a new section that follows very similar to the updates to the CIRO contract with the police department providing, when they are provided SBO vehicle, that we are asking for their yearly fee of $3,500 for the vehicle payable to the town.
But in that, I would just, again, ask that that be amended to correct the type.
Okay, what's the total?
35,000.
I see, thank you.
Any questions on that? This is, I am gonna be sending this to the superintendents to let them know of our intended changes when we ratify those contracts. And I've already had a conversation with both school superintendents about the changes. But I just, as we were doing the siren ones and having this conversation about cars, I wanted to take an opportunity to kind of put it on paper.
No, and I think it's important that we maintain our communication with the
I'll make the motion to authorize supervisor to send the intent update to SBO contract letter to East Syracuse Winona Central School District and Fayetteville Manlius Central School District administrators as amended.
All those in favor? Oh, second? Second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So next up, we have the approval of the April 24th minutes.
We have to go back to number 8.
Oh, okay.
So, we've been deliberating with regard to the proposed law for accessory dwelling unit. That has been significantly modified based on the input that we have previously received. So a new version is now available that would be so then we would look at the new version for additional comments prior to any kind of vote. And so I would like to make a motion to set a date for a public hearing regarding the proposed local law amending the zoning code to allow and regulate accessory dwelling units in the town of Manlius for June 12th. So that's the month out and plenty of time for people to consider. But I'm just wondering, do we
Yeah, cause I think we've already referred this to the planning board and that's.
They've done it, but I think we should.
Yeah, so we'd like to make that motion.
So is that would be a separate motion? Yes. Yeah. All right. So I would ask for that motion to set the date for the public hearing for June 12th. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
And then I would also like to make a motion to refer the draft language of amending the zoning code to allow and regulate accessory dwelling units in the town of Manlius to the Onondaga County Zoning Board. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We've got minutes, 2 other items before we head into it.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 24th, 2024.
Favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Supervisor's report.
I'll make a motion to approve the supervisor's report for April. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Our abstract.
We can make a motion to approve abstract number 9 in the amount of $381,739.12.
Can I ask a question before I
Sure.
second that? So I know, Eric, you mentioned we're pulling part of the Garum expenses out monthly, but are we double paying for something to Garum?
No, they're just, it's not coming out of, it's coming out of a different payment method. It's being direct, whatever it's called. Yeah. So
Well,
each of
there's an
the,
ACH payment for a backup, for a I forget what for a backup.
Yeah, for power backup.
Power backup.
It's not included in our regular
because
contract.
they're not being, those are check numbers and it's not a check, so it doesn't come out there.
It's an automatic. I process those as purchase orders, so they track through the system, because then I can monitor the budget that we approve for the year.
Yeah, so we've been doing that for a few months, right?
Yes.
So,
The monthly payment for the overall services come out of an ACH payment, and then any of the other like equipment, hardware are all purchased through purchase orders, like I said, so we can track through the budget. So we're not double paid for anything. It's just that they're being processed. Payments are being processed differently. Some are through a check, and then
their preference, their requirement, their preference, or ours?
yes, because there are additional fees for processing bank checks.
Are you seconding?
Yes.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So, Okay, this is good, we're doing this without, guidance, so I would look for a executive session, to discuss a collective bargaining agreement and, side agreement to a collective bargaining agreement, and then I don't know how to refer to the other document that we're looking at. What's that? Yeah.
Yeah, to review a memorandum.
Okay. So I would look for that vote.
I also.
There you go. I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you for being here, everybody.
Thank you.
We're gonna enter into executive session. Okay, so we are back from executive session. After discussion, I am looking for two motions. Prepared on our motion sheet.
I'll make a motion to adopt the side agreement with the Manlius PBA regarding the retiree benefits.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
And I'll also make the motion to authorize supervisor to sign the MOU regarding command staff compensation. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Have a wonderful night, everybody.
Thank you.
See ya, Alyssa.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye, see you guys.